Hi everyone. One of the things I was kind of excited about, quite a few years back, was when Disney announced a Star Wars themed hotel. And my first thought was going to be, it's going to be like the Death Star, right? In Star Wars, it's going to be like the Death Star. And then they said it's going to be like a luxury cruise liner. And then they said the price. So at first, the idea of a Star Wars hotel in Disney blew my mind. I said, oh yeah, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And I said, okay, great. We're going to be able to see Darth Vader. We're going to be able to see Chewie. We're going to be able to see R2-D2, all the guys, right? All the big... And then they said, no, it's going to be a galactic star cruiser. It's going to be like a luxury cruise ship in space. It's only going to hold a certain amount of guests, which I wasn't too upset about like that, but it's going to be an interactive experience. And then they started going, oh, okay, interactive experience, as opposed to, you know, being able to just go and stay at a hotel themed like Star Wars, where, you know, there'd be spaceships around. Your room would overlook space, which they do, but it's like, it's not like a hotel. I have to dress up for this thing, and I wasn't a big fan of that. But I said, okay, at least I'll still see all the characters. And then they said, no, it's going to be based on the new Star Wars, which is Rey and Kylo Ren, and basically characters that no one really grew attached to at all, mostly because of the mishandling of the Star Wars trilogy, the 3 newest movies that came out, by hiring different directors and firing different directors. The story itself wasn't cohesive, where the beginning, the first one in the trilogy, when it first came out, made over $2 billion, and everyone said, okay, this is a good launching point, right? We got some new characters, we're gonna build on this. And then they hired another director, Rian Johnson, who came in and cared nothing about a trilogy, and he wrote his own story, and he broke a lot of the Star Wars lore. He made choices in there that decided to completely changed the way the entire universe of Star Wars would work. Remember midichlorians from the prequels? Well, he did the exact same thing, and then they got rid of him real quick, and they brought back the original director, and it was too late. It was too late for the third movie. They tried to repair all the things that went wrong, and they made less and less money every time, and the movies got worse and worse as they went along, which means if your movies get worse and worse, people don't care about your characters anymore. So it doesn't matter how much you pump out these characters to people, they don't care anymore. You know, if your movie is bad, I don't want to dress up as that character. I don't want to interact with that character. It's plain and simple. So by making the Star Wars Galactic Cruiser in that era of galaxy, and not with Darth Vader and Luke and Han and Chewie, by not putting it in there and having those characters there, they're only drawing on the limited fans that actually seem to enjoy the movie, or are new fans coming on that didn't really know about the original Star Wars, which is all well and good, because they could have interacted with both, right? They could have had both going on, but they didn't. They just decided to do this new modern version, the Disney version of Galactic Star Cruiser. Now, by all accounts, people who have gone have had a fun time doing it. Don't get me wrong. They say the interactive experiences is fun. The dining in board is experimental and looks cool and really entertaining. They say that it's fun. One of the troubles is it's expensive. The average cost of a less than 2-day stay, they keep saying it's a 3-day, 2-night experience, but you can't check in until 4 o'clock. And then you're there the next day, and then the next morning you got to be out by 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So if it's not 48 hours. It's not a 3-day experience. It's part of a 3-day experience, but it's not the whole days. In fact, it's about 45 hours of an experience. And the average cost is $6,000 for a family of 4. $6,000 for 48 hours. That's a lot of money. And yes, there's an interactive experience. You're paying for the characters. But here's the thing. The initial excitement of the Star Wars Hotel is over. And for many people, it's a one and done. Even those who can afford that kind of price range, it's a one and done. Right? They don't, if it's the same stories every time you go in, yes, there might be different but you're not visiting different ports. You're not seeing different characters. It's going to be the same characters, maybe some different interactions, but it's going to be basically the same every time you go. So now they're thinking on changing some things up, but is it too late? Because if you look, many of the hotel booking rooms now and everything are no longer sold out. In fact, on some days and some they're calling it sailing. So, because you have to come in, everyone comes in on the same day, leaves on the same day, like a cruise ship. You don't jump in and out in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of space. So each sailing, some of them now are at 25% capacity. Now, normally on board, they have 2 dinner services so they can split the dining up, as well as have different interactive experiences for each dining. And they also have 2 performances each night while dining. Well, they're cutting that back to 1 on many, many occasions, which means the servers are only getting half the business. In some cases, a server is handling about 12 guests, which is about 20% of what they normally handle when the ship is full. And if they're only handling 20% of those on board, what's different about this is if you go to a Disney hotel or a Disney restaurant and you eat there, you leave a tip there. Not on this one, because the tips are prepaid, like a cruise ship. So people aren't leaving tips as much as they were. So if you've got a preset amount of money and you're not getting extra tips, and you're not getting tips for 80% of the people who should be there, that really hurts your income, and they're afraid now people are going to start to leave. In fact, Disney has already started cutting back the hours of the employees working there. So the singer is only performing once a night now, not twice. They're cutting back hours of the servers on board. And if they start cutting back hours of the servers on board and they're making less money because there's less people there, more and more servers are going to leave and go elsewhere because they need to make a living. And this was one of the problems when the hotel first opened, that people were worried about not making the same amount of money or making much less than they would if they went to another Disney restaurant or another restaurant in the Orlando area. That's a big problem. So if Disney is saying, well, we're thinking on changing up our plan, bringing in new experiences and some other characters and something. Well, here's the thing. You can bring in other characters. You can bring in the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. That might help. But is that going to inspire more people? Because you can now see the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda in the park. So do I want to spend an extra $6,000 to just be able to see them in your hotel? Maybe not. And if I've done your hotel before, am I going to spend $6,000 more because Baby Yoda's there? I don't think so. But that remains to be seen. But this experiment by Disney and their headstrong refusal to basically acknowledge the fan base that built Star Wars, the original 3 Star Wars movies with the original characters. Those are the ones that struck home. Those are the ones that people became almost like a religion, just like Star Trek, right? Star Trek has a huge following. Star Wars had a huge following. And instead of embracing it, they've kind of pushed them aside, push those people aside, and we're going to tell you what Star Wars is now. Star Wars is what we say it is, and what you say it is something that makes much less money. And it's soon to go under. I have a bad feeling. I have a very bad feeling that the Galactic Star Cruiser is going to cut back staff, cut back hours, drastically slash prices. In fact, Disney recently brought in a free, come on travel agents, please come on in and see and experience the Galactic Star Wars again, even though they did it at launch. They're trying to bring more people in again because it's not selling. It's not selling anymore. And if it costs a certain amount to run and they don't have the people coming in, you know that means cutting back services. Disney's been great at cutting back services all through the pandemic. Don't think they won't cut back services at that hotel and that experience. Yeah, it's sad to see, because I think had they just opened a regular Star Wars hotel themed, imagine driving up and seeing the Death Star in front of you as your hotel. How cool that would be. And have different areas in there that would look like have an X-Wing or some TIE fighters, and the Millennium Falcon out in the yard. People would have flocked to a hotel like that, especially with kids. But instead they went this route, and I don't know if it's going to work. I wish them all the best, because I don't want the employees there to be out of job or make less money, but I honestly think that the decision makers at Disney have kind of messed this up by focusing only on what they wrote and the story they wanted to tell, which failed yes, it made $1 billion. Each movie made over $1 billion, but they got worse and worse and worse. The reviews got worse and worse and worse, to the point where fans hated to go to see a Star Wars movie because they knew it wouldn't be good. That's not good. Doesn't matter if it makes $1 billion, because you could have wrote anything for a first movie in Star Wars and it would have made the $2 billion mark. And if it should have made like Endgame with Marvel, it should have made more each time the next movie came out. Instead, it made much less, and more people hated it. So instead of embracing the popular movies, they embraced the movies that failed. And if you embrace something that failed, unfortunately, you're going to fail. And it looks like the Galactic Star Cruiser is not doing so well.